Ladies, gentlemen, I actually abused my relationship with Paula and the organizers, and I said, this is a conversation I personally want to facilitate. Because I'm of the opinion that right now, in this moment of GNU, slight optimism, fragile optimism, opportunity to reset, I would hate for us to lose a conversation around opportunity to play into what is politically a good theme, reindustrialization. But play into it in a way that we don't go back past, we don't only fantasize about how fantastic Van der Bijl did things, and he did, but that time's gone. And we don't get sidetracked into old conversations around beneficiation when that may not be the right thing. So I was very keen for us to start to explore mining's role. And the obvious starting point then is mining's role could be through the procurement chain, or is it not? But I am sure, Madam Lawyer, there are lots of legal prescripts, constraints. I mean, Sandton doesn't look the way it looked because there are no laws in this country. So talk to us a little bit about the environment in which mining companies function and can play a role or can't play a role. What enables, force us, what inhibits us from playing the role? Can I start with you?
Thanks, Bernard. You can start with me. Well, in the mining industry, I suppose, if we look at procurement strategies, we're going to have to look at the social and labor plan. And with the amendments in 2020, the social and labor plan says you can collaborate on SLPs, you can, and I'm looking...
SOPs.
SLPs.
SLPs.
Social and labor plan.
Thank you. I'm not going to allow too many three-letter acronyms. Social and labor plans.
Social and labor plans. Okay. So, I mean, let's start with what's the objective. The objective is to transform the mining industry. It is also to promote employment and advance the social and economic welfare of South Africans. And the procurement strategy will come from your local economic development program, where mining houses are expected to come up with procurement strategies and its implementation. And to do that is usually focused around your capital goods, your services, and consumables. You also need to look at what is available in the local economy, because you can't say we can procure for capital goods if in the area you're working there are no capital goods, so your machinery, etc. So the law is there, but it's to find ways to work with both the mining industry, the stakeholders, and say, let's look at procurement regionally, for instance, instead of looking at it in silos, because SLPs are individual, and I think President of the Minerals Council spoke about this yesterday. Let's get out of the silos and work together. Let's collaborate regionally and have a better impact. So the law is there, but it's up to the people. It's up to the communities, the mine communities. It's up to the regulator, because the regulator must now tell us how they're going to assess success on SLPs that are, I mean, there is collaboration already, but to make it better, we need to think of putting mining companies in one room and saying, how do we have a better procurement strategy going forward?
So Ntsiki, if I try and cut through to a specific question, so is our current legislation enabling, restrictive, or flawed and need to be revised? I mean, where are we? Because we always end up in policy and we blame the government. I don't want to do that. I want to test.
Yes, and which is why I spoke about the regulations, because we know we're not going to talk about the mining charter, the procurement clause was set aside. But the DMR is in a process now of amending the law. And now it's this, I suppose, the perfect timing, while they're doing their roadshow, to say where are the gaps in the law, and to speak to things that are not already dealt with. So to get to the point, the legislation is there, especially in terms of SLPs. It can be improved upon.
Igor, as Kearney, I still think with 80 Kearneys, Kearney, you guys must operate globally. You must see models that work in other parts of the world. We're very sensitive in South Africa to learn from other countries. If it's not invented here, it's wrong, especially colonial countries. So don't take us to colonial examples. But are there places where this model, where reindustrialization works?
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having me, Bernard, on this panel. And I've been to many conferences, spoken at many panels, but I was told by the team here that I wouldn't graduate unless being moderated by you. So hopefully this will be a good experience, and you will be very nice to me and all the panel members.
If you survive, you get a certificate that say, I survived, Bernard. Okay.
But going back to your question and what was said about the regulation and local law and local content law, I think it is much broader, and we need not to see it as a compliance only, but we need to see it in the context of what is happening in the world. And it's a little bit different compared to what it used to be probably 5-10 years ago. First of all, we all now are living in post-COVID environment. 3 years ago, it would be illegal to sit here like this without the mask and 3 seats free between each other. We learned that the supply chain, after 3 decades of globalization, can be fragile. So it's not only a compliance, but it's also a strategic imperative about the security and resilience of the supply chains. Yeah? So for the companies, whether they are mining champions or other industrial champions, this is very important. The second point that has been also mentioned several times here is the increasing geopolitical tensions. That's not helping for the supply chains. And all the industrial companies, including the mining players, must take it into account, and it's a risk management. It's a strategic imperative how to manage the supply chains. Third, that I would say, is the race for the critical minerals. And that works both ways. There are countries that are as blessed as South Africa. There are countries that are asking, demanding, saying, I need it. I need to collaborate more. And that creates also an opportunity for them to collaborate with the countries that are as blessed as you in South Africa for the critical minerals going forward. Your question about the examples. There are many examples. You have also the Anglo-American also talk about their program in the final closing remarks. But what is very important are several features. The local content is a very important industrial policy. And if used in connection with the industrial champions, it can be powerful. It's not only about can mining companies reindustrialize or use it for reindustrialization. No, if only them, it cannot help. If it is translated into the whole industry, and for example, the Middle East is a good example, you didn't want to go to the old colonial examples, is the example where such policy is being implemented across the whole industry. Yep. Not only the traditional champions, but also the new champions. How to translate it from the policy to the boardroom, to the executive teams, and to the supply chain. It also needs to go even further. It needs to go to the very clear articulation of the value proposition. And I would call it even a business case. There is no localization without the business case, unless the companies understand how this can create the value. And when you localize, the capability development is very important, not just for the sake of compliance and localization. You localize, you develop the local suppliers that are supplying and supporting the local industrial champions, but you need to develop them to the international standards. Otherwise, they will not be sustainable. And the third one is that the collaboration is important. It cannot be done only by one industry, by mining. It needs to go across various industries, and many industrial champions need to be connected. They need to collaborate, share the information, share the resources. That is what is happening also with the Vision 2030 and various localization programs in the Middle East. For you, allow me to say, a couple of weeks ago, we have listened to the announcement of Dan and Simon between ESCOM and Sasol. That is a huge category, procurement category, guys. But there are many more. If they can collaborate, if your industrial champions can collaborate at much lower level and take various procurement categories, create the demand visibility for the suppliers, then it's a success.
So Igor, before I go to the two elders, because my God, they couldn't speak, our time will be up. So I want to sneak in one more.
I want to graduate.
Yeah, I want to sneak in one more question to you. So at the crux of this is, should this be government-led? Because then you lose half of the audience. Or should this be private industry-led, then you lose the other half of the audience. So as an outsider giving South Africa advice, can this happen without it being government-led? Whether it's through legislation, incentives, doesn't matter? Or should it be private sector-led?
It needs to be industry, private sector-led, supported by the government and policymakers.
So business case then means it makes money, amongst other things?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, Mxolisi, you are the ugly face of big business, business leadership South Africa. So I'm going to talk to big business first, and then we're going to come to small business. Business leadership South Africa, I mean, you wear that hat, but you sit here as somebody with a passion for mining, the industry and industrialization. What is your advice? How can you help us to achieve this? How can we impact on the DMR's current thinking before it's too late and we fight each other in a court again?
Thank you very much, Bernard. First of all, Business Unity South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, these acronyms.
Of which Business Leadership South Africa is part of.
Oh, so you're even higher up.
No, not necessarily. It's not necessarily
my
high up.
sincerest apologies. Business Unity South Africa.
You know, one of the things that, as BUSA, we are busy having to start engagement on, and that is with the Minister of Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, is about the type of industrial policies that are going to be driving where we want to go as a country going forward. Because this is bigger than, as it was highlighted, this is much bigger than just saying this industry, what can it do, this industry. What is the industrial policy for South Africa around how do you want to be competitive globally, and how will that translate to the type of industries we want to ensure that as a country we want to create our own capacity and capabilities. Because one thing that COVID taught everybody in the world was that if you allow China to do everything for you, you are really at the peril of the Chinese to control your future, even in terms of crisis. So now we start talking about countries being much more nationalistic about how they want to protect themselves. But in this instance, I think it's about how we define what a South Africa that is going to be globally competitive, that is going to be resilient, that is going to be able to actually create its own industries to create that resilience and sustainability for itself. Then we have to start thinking about. It's what I was talking about yesterday, about you've got to look 15, 20, 30 years from now and really come up where you want to position your country and then put in the building blocks and understand these complexities. Because without doing that, you are unable now to start understanding what are the necessary industries that you want to create? Now, it also comes to the work that we are also doing, for instance, with Eskom and Transnet, because there's huge procurement spend that we're already seeing that's going to come out of that. All right, and you say, where is this going to come from? Where is the money going to flow to? How do we make sure that the money circulates within the country? So you have to start identifying which are these big, key, critical procurement spends that are going to be required for the longevity of all these entities that have to exist for the next coming 30, 40, 50 years. And you start saying we can start packaging certain types of industrial policies and enablement so that we can actually start bringing and actually implementing and actually using the private sector now to actually build those types of industries. So this is a very complex issue we're talking to, but it's one that has to be not only just led by government, because you have to talk with Treasury. You've got to talk with all organs of government. And it also, you've got to bring it also within the area of the critical skills that are going to be required to do that. So if you don't have the skills, where are you going to get the skills to start doing that immediately? So the whole issue around visa, dealing with issues of visas to attract skills, to bring in those skills to help you start that journey is going to be also important. So there is a lot that needs to happen, but it's again, we need to create a framework and a strategy for the country with which we're all going to rally around, of which now you're going to say, mining, what role are you going to play in part to actually enable this thing to happen?
So yesterday, Minister Mantas sneaked in. He's not here yet, so we can still talk behind his back. But he wanted to know, who's this fictional minister who spoke early yesterday? Now, I can now disclose it was you, the fictional minister. But between that and perhaps the previous night, you said two things. The one is, well, you asked the question, do ministers dream? And what do they dream about? So, I mean, there is a national dream. There has to be a dream. I mean, it doesn't actually matter to me personally which party you represent. I want to hear what is your dream for the country, and do the ministers dream. And then you also refer to Van der Bijl, and Sipho was the man who gave me the book on Van der Bijl, which I read. And clearly you need people with real vision that channel the resources to build infrastructure capacity. So ministers don't dream, do they? And can Busa play a role in this national dream, which we as mining then fit into?
I firmly believe that we can all collectively play a role in this dream. I mean, let's just take from the mining side. What is the vision for mining long term? And what role do they think they can play in actually enabling industrialization out of what they can do, supported by others who are also thinking about the same thing? Because unfortunately, we tend to operate in silos. This is bigger than one sector. This is about, again, and this is where Busa, I think, as that hub, can actually bring that collective industrial base of South Africa around a table to say, we need to have a serious Indaba ourselves about what we can do for our country, for ourselves, so that we can be reliant and actually create all these wonderful things, even for the export market, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But it also starts about a collectiveness within the BLSA, Busa, and all other industries about just having this conversation. And then you start bringing in, once we start thinking about it in a sincere manner, then we say, what role can government, what we want out of government to actually help us to do this thing? Because government are not good in actually coming up with things which at the outset are very commercial. We have to come up with that which we think we can wish and want to invest in. And we tell them, these are how we would like to see you playing that role to unlock and support this thing. So, and that's not going to be something that, it's going to be done haphazardly. It's got to be done collectively. So I am hoping that as part of what we can achieve as business is how we have a very collective mindset about what and things and focus areas of how we want to industrialize this industry, because we're going to put the capital to do it, by the way. It's not going to be government.
Yeah.
But government also sits with monies that should actually be used for as part of that. Social labor plans, okay? What does that actually mean in a context of when you've got to really create a lot of jobs? We've got our royalties sitting somewhere within Treasury. I'm not sure what they are doing there, okay, instead of being put and channeled back to where and supporting. We've got also our rehabilitation funds, that are sitting there, they should be utilized as part of the capital to do this thing. These are all the things that we really have to be very intentional about.
I want to come back later, and please, if I forget, we must talk about this unique opportunity that the G20 is coming to South Africa, and therefore there's a B20, and we own the agenda to some extent as South Africa, and you play a role there. So I want to come back to that. But Sipho, can I first come to you? So, you are very involved in the Small Business Institute, the small business space. All small businesses really want is like whatever preferential procurement, all this other crap, just cut me in, you know what I mean? And then I want to challenge you beyond the small business mindset in South Africa of the roles they want to play. I want to go back to your other hat, where the red tapes are. The man with the scissors, but they're blunt, eh? Jeez, they cut nothing. But so before we go to the red tape, can we first talk about small business? Small business is hard to fit into these big conversations. It's hard to contribute. And then you give us a minister and she hands over toasters and kettles and, and I don't know always where this is helping. How do we incorporate?
When are we going farming again?
Talk to us about the small business role here, or is there a role?
Yeah, there is a role. And I'm not sure whether, it comes back to the same points that were raised earlier on, whether as the country we have thought this thing through carefully. We look around the world, every country that has grown, every business that has developed is driven by small business. So small business plays a key role. But as a country, I don't think we have really put our thoughts and our minds around that. And that is why we seem to be failing. And therefore, whatever involvement we get involved in, it is just a footnote or, by the way, there are small businesses that must be involved. But it's not intentional to ensure that we build business. If you take mining, for instance, I was quite pleased with what Mr. Mabuza was saying yesterday in terms of creating a more robust exploration industry in South Africa, because through that one you can create quite a lot of businesses going forward. But small businesses doing that would work. So I think that's the first thing that is important, is that we must take this thing very seriously and we must make it work. But the other thing is that I know you don't want us to talk about the past and all those kinds of things. But for all these things we're talking about to happen, we still need to have a mining company, or we need to have mining industry in South Africa. And that really is the nub of the issue. How do we ensure, as Nkosi says, how do we ensure that we have a mining? Do we have a vision for this thing? Or we just, this morning someone says it's a dying industry, it's got no future. Kids say, I can't be involved in mining. But in all honesty, before you do any other thing, South Africa has been through various phases of industrialization, but mining has always been an anchor out of that. So when that happens, there is support that you get, particularly from the state. I'll give you an example. If you look at the second phase, when the people were talking about getting all labor to come and work at the mine, government had to come in and put in laws that discriminated against us so that we are pushed to go and work there and made life very difficult for us to sit in the rural areas. So everyone has to work and do something to get you there. So small business cannot work if there's no thought. So the mind has to be there, because if there's no mind, there's no business. And therefore, all these things, if we look at industrialization of South Africa in the past, we wouldn't have the railway structure that we have today. It came about because there was a mine in Kimberley, there was a mine in Johannesburg, and all those things happened. And therefore, small businesses come in at that point, and they can provide. And some of those little things, like social and labor plans, maybe they can work at that time. But South Africa has to think bigger and broadly about its own future and where it wants to take the country.
In the meantime, at least 3 questions during the 2 days, and I didn't put them to the panelists, was about, but you, Mr. Big Mining Company, don't pay me on time. You don't pay my bills. Now, the government has had many campaigns of pay within 30 days. Every CEO tells the world we pay our suppliers. Every supplier says, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, you are disconnected from reality. We don't get paid. We get played, not paid. So is there, for right now, will small business find a space more accommodating if business partnerships is more honest? Do you hear these complaints in your small business space?
No, the problem is, I think South Africa in general, every citizen in South Africa needs to take a look at themselves. We have a problem as a people, because we tend to think of us as individuals. We don't think of society. So what do I get? We look at how you benefit out of that. One of the things that we dealt with, or we're still dealing with, or they will deal with in the red tape structure, is this 30-day payment, as you
Is that part of the red tape initiative as well?
But I mean, everything is there. Everything is there. There's nothing that prevents people from paying. But why is it happening? It is just the attitude. That attitude of just, I'm not going to pay. Even within 5 days, I'm ready to pay, but I'm not going to pay. I'll wait until it's 30 days, and you don't pay. And the second thing, I mean, we get stories like people call you and say, Mhlegas, I'm sitting here with your file. It's got your name there. What do you want me to do with it? And then the person said, well, I thought you were supposed to pay me. Why aren't you paying? And said, no, I think you must come and let's have a conversation about that. Because that conversation needs to lead to something else, you know. So as a result, South Africa needs to think about the morals that we have. So until all of us, I mean, it can't happen. The 80-20 rule maybe will rule. But, you know, if you don't have love, the love for your own country, and the love for yourself, and the love for your people, some of these things will be lost.
I'm very worried when I think it deserves applause, but I'm extremely worried when this deep miner's voice at a mining conference speaks about love. I just want to take a moment and recover. So, Mxolisi, I don't know that smile you had when I asked this difficult question to Sipho, whether you'd smile thinking you're so glad here to answer it. But can we step back out of the detail of right now? We are actually acting against our own best interests in payment and things like that. I want to go to the B20. Is that just another talk shop? I mean, David Mackay calls this fundamental conversation a talk shop. Is that just a very expensive talk shop? Do we as South Africa have an opportunity to address some of these issues? Like the world is a different place. What is the role of the global South, us, South Africa? I mean, guide us through how this will play out in your mind. And I think you are instrumental in the business processes that lead up to that. So share with us, how does it play out? How do we play into it?
The B20 is a precursor to the G20. In the B20, what basically happens is that whatever is the host country that's going to be hosting that B20, you then look at what has happened in the previous B20s, because the outcome of a B20 activity is one that defines and sets policies, but you are bringing all your other G20 business colleagues in formulating those policies around, basically there's normally 8 themes. They talk about trade, they talk about the digital, they talk about sustainability, they talk about women inclusion, they talk about a whole host of, but there are normally 8 of them. And they go every year, 5 of them, they are repetitive. And then there's 2, in fact 6 of them are repetitive, but it's about how you ensure that these policies get actually then presented to the G20 leaders, and then they become the things that will, between yourselves and but you are working with your country all the time about some of the things that you want to get out of this thing. And then there are 2 last themes where the country itself can say, we want to either showcase or we want to put this on the map about our own country, okay? And part of that we are basically going to be working with government is to say, what are we wanting to showcase to the world? What do we want the world to support us on, that if we can get the world to support us on, it's for our country's benefit, but it can also benefit other countries, because if it is something that is transportable in terms of what we are doing, which we want to support, other countries could probably also emulate it. So this is part of the work that we're going to be doing. We'll be there in 2 weeks' time. The government officials are going to be there, and out of that now, we're going to come back. We've already had an engagement with the business community to say we have to prepare as a country, because all those chairs have got to be chaired by South African CEOs. And it's only the co-chairs where you can bring in the external other CEOs from other countries. But it is a moment, and that is why I had indicated at that session where we were having with government on the business government partnership, that we have, as a country, have one of the most unique opportunities as demonstrating what I would call the strength of this country. And let me give you what I'm talking about here. When we talk with our counterparts in Brazil, they say, you know, you guys have got something miraculous about your country. First of all, you have an outcome of a government that was in power, plus 50%, lose that power, that majority, but instead of contesting the results, instead of burning the country down, like what happened to us in Brazil in the last election, you go and form a GNU. He says, nothing like that. That's how he says, even America can't even handle an outcome like that.
Are you talking about the past or the future?
Exactly. So you've got something that's unique. The second one, you've got this business-government partnership around solving problems. And you can take that partnership and use it as a mechanism not to solve just problems, but to create a new future in a partnership manner. You guys have got that. Now, that is something that is so unique that as a country, with government, in showcasing South Africa, in terms of what it can do, we need to leverage that as part of our B20, G20.
But now, can I give you the 2 South African issues, and then we can save you a lot of money? No, but seriously, and we should almost, all of us should almost verbalize the 1 or 2 things so that it can go into a pot. But clearly for us as a South African mining industry, but South Africa, a pragmatic energy transition. Because right now we are already fighting against it because the Germans tell us what to do, the this do us. So pragmatic, who are we, where are we, and by 2050, where do we want to be? And then I honestly think, what does reindustrialization means in terms of levies and AGOA and various agreements? Now, save all the other money that you were going to waste on this and just deliver those 2 things for me, please, man. But, I mean, our economy is so small, and yet we need to connect to the world. And anyway, that was just my free advice. I want to come back to you because you look like you want to say, you haven't told me which country can we copy.
Well, I don't think you should copy any country.
I agree
You
with
should
that.
learn from other countries
Yes.
and to do it in your way. But the way how I looked was probably because I was having a ministerial dream. I don't know whether I'm allowed.
What you dream, I don't know, consultant dream, a ministerial dream. We must stop this topic now before we get to a miner's dream. Eh?
No, but that's a
Yes.
that's a minister. If I were the minister, what I would dream about
Yes.
between now and what you talk about G20, I would dream about that I would put together an action group that would be full of the people with the love that you talked about to your country, to your industry, and ask them, we have a potential to increase the industry by X%. And mining can go from 6 to 10% if you use all the potential. And I would ask that group, work together, identify the opportunities for reindustrialization, not only in the mining, connect with other sectors, talk to each other, agree how you share the information between yourself, and define the concrete opportunities that I would announce to my colleagues, my counterparties at G20. South Africa is ready. We are offering you the critical minerals to fuel your energy transition, but we also have a number of investment opportunities. And we are inviting you to come. There is a good investment opportunity for you. We have the critical minerals. We will be growing our industry. Come and invest with us. So that would be my dream as a minister. Between now and G20. Probably he heard it. So
Yeah, exactly. It could have been sweeter. Mxolisi, you wanted to comment on that?
I just wanted to come back to, after COVID, just towards the tail end of COVID, because we had this lovely partnership with government in solving the COVID crisis as business. The BUSA actually collectively got every sector in our country, from tourism to you name it, to actually work on what is the post-economic recovery plan for South Africa, where each area, mining, I know Roger played a very big role in terms of what could the mining of the future look like and what we could actually do as mining as part of that growth agenda. And we'd even defined it, that we want to go to 5%, up to 5% or collectively. 1,000 pages was presented to government, with each sector having defined that. Now, one of the things that we are doing with parks right now is that stuff is still almost as relevant today. Obviously, you've got to update it, instead of always going back from scratch and say, everyone, you actually came up with something, how relevant is it, or how do we change that? Because it was researched, it was not just pie in the sky, it had action plans of how we would go about it and the timelines to do these things. So it's not that I'm talking about something that we have not yet already done, but it's unfortunately when you are in a position of power and you don't want to listen very well, you don't necessarily take those and adopt this, but they're there. So we don't have to start from scratch to actually do these things. They are there. It's just now how we actually use that collectively to say, well, that was then, but can we just be clear about where we really want to go to? And then a very interesting thing was that what was actually said on that day, 2 days ago, was that in actual fact, the architect of the National Development Plan, one of the architects in drafting that, and it was raised, was actually the president who now has to implement it, right? But that plan, we know that it never had a day of any chance because it was just a plan without any defined outcomes.
I wonder if we define South Africa as a turnaround case. Because, that NDP, I actually read the damn thing more than once. And it was a fantastic document. but not substance. Now we've got 1,000 pages of good detail. But that's not how you turn something around. I would challenge us, no. In time, when the emotions are gone, we look at Eskom and say, why did some attempts to turn it around fail? Then people came in and they had a narrower plan, but it was corruption or whatever. And now we have a plan which is quite narrow, fix a few things, and it seems to be working. And I just wonder if South Africa is not a turnaround case, our economy.
No.
Should we not pick 3 things? It's impossible, because by the time you guys in big business have collaborated, everybody has got 3 things. I'm cynical about aren't there low-hanging fruits? A few things.
There are many low-hanging fruits which are there. But, again, where is the North Star?
Yeah, we're missing that.
You've got to have a North Star, Bernard.
Yeah.
You just can't get away from that.
Yeah.
Most countries that succeed, they've got a 50-year plan.
Yeah, no,
Which actually from administration to the next administration, it's just a plan that takes the country there. So that everybody who comes knows where we are going.
But I'm very happy because you're now blaming Nombasa and where's Mzila? We don't even have a mining industry North Star. Is that what you're saying?
But we must be hopeful. I mean,
no, of course we're hopeful. Yes.
I just think that South Africa has undergone various stages from pain, a lot of pain where we've been through, and we got to a position where we thought we were fixing things by probably messing up with what we hated in the past, and we couldn't interpret what we wanted to do. But if you look at the development and the progression the country is taking, I mean, take this industry. I mean, it's so encouraging to listen to what is happening here. You remember during Pumzila's days, Rick Benell, when we were talking, they would say, it is a sunset industry. Now it's gone. So we have evolved as a people. We're starting to think. We're getting new thinking. Young people are coming up with great ideas. So I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic that we're going to get there. The North Star is a critical thing, as Mxolisi said.
Yeah.
We need to get to that, but we need to define where we want to go as a country. Really.
So, Igor, if we, with related industries, redirect our procurement spend, are we just barking in a thunderstorm? Are we wasting time? Or is it a lever worth pulling? So if we come back to what we can do, we stop blaming Mxolisi and Busa, and we stop blaming the red tape SARS whose scissors are blunt, and we stop all those things, and we say, what can we do? Can we make a significant difference by redirecting our procurement spend? Is it a legitimate lever to pull to achieve reindustrialization?
Okay. Sorry, if I might. Okay. If you look at the legislation has been talking about social and labor plans, and people have been spending money in silos as companies. But that is changing now. Companies are collaborating and working with other companies. So that's why I'm saying, I'm not too despondent about what's
Thank you,
going
Igor.
on.
Sipho, your views?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. But first of all of these plans and 1,000 pages that you refer to, I remember very well. I personally was spending nights with the team here, writing them and contributing to that. But I think you have a full right to remind the policymakers that this exists and to invite them again. Yeah? Is it a silver bullet? No, it's not, Bernard.
There's no silver bullet.
Is it a very, very important lever, one of the industry policy levers, to use your industrial champions, and the mining industry is an industrial champion of South Africa. It is important to do so. It will contribute, it will not solve all the problems. If the policymakers and the business will not take that chance, you will lose both.
But we will definitely continue to talk about this until this will be our next cadastre system. We'll talk about it for 5 years, then we'll be lied to for 3 years, and then we'll get the damn thing. Okay, so this is the next one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I really didn't want this to become a blame-shifting exercise. the purpose of this conversation is, do we as the mining industry see ourselves aligning to a national imperative, which is economic growth, inclusive economic growth. The night when we were having a party, other people were committing to 3.3% growth by 2025. How the hell are we going to do that? And what is our contribution? And our contribution is not only as an industry, as my company, as me as an individual. And so thank you for exploring this conversation, and we'll unpack it as we go forward, but that's definitely after tea. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on tea, because if the minister doesn't arrive, which I don't expect, then we'll just go straight into drinks.
They say he's here.
Is he already here? Damn it. Okay. So then we come back for his address.
We have a minister.
Yeah, you don't know, he's a fake minister. He's a minister with a dream. Thank you very much, everybody.